Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Nokuhle, and in today's episode, I have got 10 careers that I would avoid. And before I get into it, I just want to do this as a disclaimer. I am not saying that if you're in this type of career, if you're studying this, if you're in this job, that you will not be successful. There are many examples of people who are in these fields that are really successful, so it is definitely doable. The only reason these things have made it on the list is either because they're oversubscribed, or they are too generic, or there's just no structure. Okay, when you are studying, I like things that have certainty. And of course, in this world, nothing is, promised. Nothing is 100%. However, if you're playing a game of odds, there are certain degrees or careers where you're more likely to get a job, you're more likely to succeed than not. And some of these, you're more likely to not succeed. Okay, so obviously with passion and intentionality, anything is possible. However, if you're just a normal person who's doing these things and you just picked it for the sake of picking it, or you picked it because you got accepted for it, okay, you, my friend, might have a problem because it requires more than that. I'm saying a lot of disclaimers because I am obviously very nervous because some of these degrees or careers affect a lot of people, but I said what I said. And if you disagree, the comment section is yours. Okay, all right, so coming in at number 10, I have law or LLB. Okay, so lawyers, attorneys, everyone under that bucket. I believe this career is oversubscribed. There are just too many people who are doing this or who have done it, and there is going to be an issue later on when people are struggling to find either job placements or articles, or they might find articles but they might not find post work after articles just because the demand doesn't really match the supply. Okay, many people who are in this field end up working in HR, compliance. They might work in certain businesses and help develop policies. However, because a lot of people fall in love with this career based off of what they see in movies, they might feel very unsatisfied or demotivated because what they actually do might not actually match what they fell in love with. Again, a lot of people think they're going to be in court. A lot of people think they're going to be like Harvey Specter on Suits, but not really what you're gonna do. Okay, you might just sit behind a computer. At number 9, I have psychology, so it could be a BA or a BSc. And the reason this is on here is because a lot of people might want to be a psychologist. However, it's not really highlighted that you only start practicing as a psychologist once you have your master's. So with an undergrad or an honors, you can't really do much, okay? You can't really do much in terms of what you wanted to do. You need to have the master's, and then you also get the HPCSA registration, basically to make sure that you're operating under your professional body. However, because people do fall short, okay, people don't go all the way to master's level, a lot of people end up becoming teachers or work in HR or become coaches. Or sometimes they go into marketing, okay, because they obviously understand the way the brain works, so they try and market to us. So the field is open, there are alternatives, but if you went into this because you wanted to help people one-on-one, you might need to study a lot more than you anticipated. Also, even when you've gone the whole way and become a psychologist, then you can actually speak to people one-on-one. Employment-wise, people are not really hiring psychologists that much. In a big hospital, the ratio of psychologists to doctors and nurses is very small. So there might be 2 psychologists in a whole hospital, whereas a hospital will have multiple doctors and even more nurses. So just think about how you have to compete with so many other people just to get that 1 or 2nd spot, okay? However, as a caveat, I will say the world is moving into a very mentally aware space, okay? So a lot of people are in touch with their mental health and mental wellness. So there might be a demand in that sense. People want the support, and obviously people who can afford to pay for it privately via medical aid will be fine. However, just from someone who just wants to work, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you don't want to open your own practice, you might not, enjoy this. Let's be honest, saving can feel like admin, but not anymore. ABSA's latest innovation, Savings Coach, makes it feel like you're doing something fun for your future. You set your goal, whether it's that big dream like a car or just that first solo getaway. ABSA's Savings Coach helps you build towards it without the stress. It keeps you focused and lets you adjust on the go. It's personal, flexible, and actually works with your life. It's ABSA's fun and smart new way to save, all on the ABSA banking app. Set your goal, automate your savings, and feel like a winner from day one. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. Number 8, sports science. A lot of people who peak in high school, who are very athletic and they play first team this and first team that, end up going to study this at university just because whatever they're studying isn't really the main focus. Their focus is, going to run and continue doing whatever athletic activity they were good at. And then they just study for the sake of it, or they study because obviously for you to get the bursary to represent the university in the sports you're good at, you have to be studying. The problem with this is that firstly, sports is tricky. You can get hurt and then you're out. Okay, now you're out the field. And I know someone can say, oh no, even with academics, you can get into a car accident, your brain gets hurt and you're out. Yes, that is true. But the chances are slim, whereas with sports, especially if it's contact sports, you're always getting pushed, you're always getting shoved. So the chances of you getting hurt are a lot higher. And then what ends up happening is people who do sports science will end up becoming coaches at schools, or they will work with other athletes, so they'll be like pro coaches. But that sucks, because now imagine you are training someone to live your dream. Is that what you want to do? Number 7 is a fashion designer, and I think almost every girl goes through this phase, or at least if you like frilly things and girly things. But the problem with being a fashion designer is if you don't have a strong personal brand and you don't have entrepreneurial skills or the drive to own your own thing, you might not really get noticed. Okay, you can do it, you can, trust me. But the thing is, chances are people might not actually access your work, or people who love what you do might not be able to afford it because you have to price your items at such a price that you can afford rent and you can afford a living salary. So although people love what you show them and people support you when you're on the come up, when you're ready to release it to the public, it might be overpriced and no one really subscribes. Or, which is another very big thing, there are so many competitors and people can steal your ideas. I've seen so many people who have tried to sue Shein and other big fashion brands because they stole their designs. And yes, you can go the whole way. Yes, you can do the legal route. But the thing is, it requires a lot of financial muscle. You need to take them to court. You need to prove that they really stole your idea. So Number 6 is journalism, media studies, or acting. So the media industry is shrinking, and also it's characterized by being very underpaid. I have seen too many actors who I grew up watching who have now come up on social media asking for donations, sending us their account details, or people who have now passed on or gotten sick and they can't really afford to look after themselves. And it is very concerning, but it also just shows that sometimes we look at people and think they're living a very glamorous life, but the reality is that all the glitz and glam they have on screen isn't translated to their real lives. Another thing is there are a lot of replacements. Nowadays, people are not really studying the arts, but they are coming up on our screens. Social media has also changed this whole industry. People who studied random things and then became TikTok or YouTube famous are now appearing on our screens. And this just shows the ease of entry into this. And of course, people will argue and say, no, but you can tell the difference between someone who's been trained in the arts versus someone who, just did it through talent or was just picked because they're popular. But the truth is, no one cares. And I've actually also been someone who has been scouted for acting gigs, and I have done them because the bag is the bag. But the thing is, I've definitely felt some type of way because I'm like, wow, other kids go and study for this and really push for these things and really apply and send in videos of saying, hi, I'd like to apply for this role, I'd like to audition for this role. And then some people just get handpicked. You get an email saying, hey, we'd really love to work with you. And it is unfair, but it's also a signal that it's a bit too easy to enter. So this is not something you should go for unless you're really, really passionate and you're really, really talented. Okay. At number 5, I have chemical engineering. This one might cause a bit of a stir because, come on, we're not engineers ever not sought out for. But chemical engineering, or at least at UCT, is extremely tough academically. the numbers in those classes drop like flies. So everybody knows that it's really hard to get in, but it's also even harder to get out. However, all of that hard work kind of doesn't really translate to your career afterwards because it is very unstructured. There are too many things that chemical engineers can do. Some of them will go into finance, some will go into consulting, tech, entrepreneurship. The world is endless, and this is good for others, but for most, it can be a bit confusing because now what? Okay. I like stability, I like certainty, and of course, yes, you can change your mind. However, there should be a clear pipeline that a typical person can follow, and chemical engineering does not have that. Sidebar, I also believe that in chemical engineering, they prepare you for management level, at least the degree. So they prepare you to manage another group or like 50 plus people who've also studied chemical engineering, but at a technical college, okay, like your Mangosuthu University of Technology, Durban University of Technology, CPUT, TUT, VUT, and all of that. So you as a chemical engineering degree holder will be managing those people. Those people will get jobs. But you, as the one manager, you have to compete with your whole class to just get that one manager role. So that's why I don't like it. At number 4, we have a BSc in biology, zoology or zoology, genetics, environmental science, environmental management, all of that. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't know what you guys do. Like, I know in theory, but like, I don't know what you guys do on a day-to-day basis. But if you know someone, maybe you guys can like, educate me in the comments. But I just feel like a lot of these are very research based. They're very research heavy. And when you need research, you need a lot of funding. Okay. My issue with needing a lot of funding is that funding usually comes from the government or foreign aid. And it is very hard for your whole career to be based off of whether or not you get a grant, whether or not you get funding. I don't like that. Also, my other issue is that the skills aren't always transferable. I can't think of alternative routes. Like, if you don't do that, what else would you do? Yes, you can probably go do consulting or whatever, but like, you'd probably still have to do something else just to bridge that gap. So I don't like it. And number 3, we have political science or international relations. There are few roles for this. A lot of people study this. A lot of people might dream of being in parliament and all of that. But there are a lot of people studying this, but not enough roles for everyone to get a job. Another thing is people might aim or be pushing to be in the UN, so United Nations and all that, which is great. Okay, I love people who are in policy making and you can make money. But again, similar to the biology and environmental what, it is very reliant on government funding or foreign funding, and also you really have to be shooting the stars for you to be noticed in the political science or international relations field. Number 2, culinary arts or a chef. Cooking is a skill. Cooking is an art, and it is a great thing, and some people are really, really talented. However, there are too many pop-up chef schools that I am seeing across our country and across the continent that I'm getting a bit concerned, because all of these people who are cooking, who are they cooking for? Have you ever, okay, maybe you have, but like how often, rather, should be the question. How often do you go for a fine dining experience where you pay real money? No. Like, it's a once every 3 years type of thing. It's not something people sort out after. Of course, internationally, this is a bigger art. There is a bigger demand for it. And that's why a lot of people will actually go and work abroad. They'll go work in the US and the UK and all of that, which is great. But a lot of people who do this will remain in the entry level field, and they'll usually be overworked and underpaid. So I don't really like it. But don't get me wrong, there are people who are talented, there are people who make a killing of this. However, I generally believe most of them end up becoming entrepreneurs. Most of them open restaurants or have their own store or something. There's some signature thing that they do. So if you don't have that entrepreneurial spirit, you don't have a strong personal brand, and you're not willing to build one, this is not something you should, entertain. And then lastly, at number 1, marketing. And I've also said here / graphic design. Marketing, I feel like I'm going to get skinned for this, but I feel like marketing is oversubscribed every person is a marketer, especially a digital marketer. I feel like at some point someone has also written an article and called me a digital marketer. I don't care. And again, I know people might say, oh no, but that's not all what marketing is. You can also see people who did marketing through like a YouTube video versus people who studied it. Okay, nobody cares. Similarly with graphic designers, they'd be like, oh no, we can see a logo that was made by someone who made it on Canva versus a logo that was done by a graphic designer. Okay, nobody cares again. Like, I really believe people only care about those things later on when their companies are like big and making lots of money, that they can, you know, spend more money with the nice to haves. Also, AI is really disrupting this market, and I feel like a lot of people are learning these skills. I think even when you think about like running Google ads, this used to be someone's job. This used to be something that someone could do and make a good living. But nowadays we all have Facebook Meta, and we all know how to, you know, put in our card and run a couple of ads. We might not do it the best way, but we'll figure it out. So yeah, in conclusion, I have said a lot, and I know you guys might not agree. So if you don't agree, do let me know in the comments which comments you believe I am completely wrong with. But also, do let me know which comments you actually kind of agree with. And if you are studying in these, I don't want you to panic too much. I'm not saying drop out. I'm not saying go change your course. All I'm saying is be very intentional about it. But also, it's time for you to look for mentors, people that you can look at and see what they've done. I'm not saying you need to have a mentor, but go and follow other people's career paths and see how they got to where they are, so you can try and map something similar. Again, luck is a thing, so don't think just because you did everything they did, you're gonna end up where they are, but be very intentional.
If you enjoyed this video, please tip me with a like, comment, and subscription.